I'm Elana, and today we're going to be discussing Autism and Me, if the dog gets off, which he will when I boot him off. Like, I need to stop filming. I love you too. Is that the camera? Are you looking at your face? Can you see your face? Oh, no. No. Right, bye-bye. So today, the 3 points that we are going to cover are my diagnosis story, my autism, and my techniques. So my diagnosis story begins kind of with my brother. He was diagnosed with autism when I was 7 or 8 or younger, and he had lots of interventions in his life. So he went to a special school, he went to regular OT sessions, and he had all these things, and it kind of made me be scared of the word autistic, and I really didn't need to be, but when you're young I think it's quite easy to be scared by a word and not really know what it means at all. So when I was between I think 9 and 11, I had 2 or 3 autism diagnosis tests, and they both came back negative. One of my kind of favourite stories was that my mum told me a couple months ago, was that the lady that had misdiagnosed me, when after meeting me, thought, my daughter's quite like that, and she went and got her assessed and she had autism. I didn't know that, but I remember once I had an assessment, or like a meeting, like consultation with a psychologist, and she used the word autism, and I was just crying my eyes out because I was just so scared of the word and what it meant. So yeah, back to the kind of diagnosis story. I was misdiagnosed twice, or 2 or 3 times, and the last lady was a psychologist, and she said to my mum, I think when Alana's older she might think she's autistic, and I think she might want another assessment. So I kind of think they were basically saying, look, we think she is, but she's not letting enough information out from how she feels for us to actually give her a proper diagnosis. So yeah, I kind of was let free into the world as such, kind of forgetting about that all of that had happened. And then when I was 14, I thought I was autistic, and I did some research into it, and I thought, this kind of sounds like me. So I got my mum to refer me to CAMS, and I had that initial assessment where they thought I was autistic, and then the waiting list for autism assessments was 2 years, and my mum thought that was quite a long time for me to wait, so we went privately. And what happened there was she and my dad saw the lady that had actually misdiagnosed me the second time, or third time, the final time, and I saw a speech and language therapist, and they did say I had autism. And I think the difference this time was how seeing me be a teenager, me interacting with people, and kind of my perceptions on the world, because I just kind of realised I wasn't quite like other people. I didn't really fit in, I had trouble maintaining friends, and I didn't really know why, and I kind of almost felt like the social outcast, and I just had no explanations for anything. And when I found out I was autistic, it kind of came as a relief, because suddenly everything made sense about the way I was acting, and I could kind of do more research into it. But it also was really hard because, you know, they call people who aren't autistic neurotypical, which to me kind of suggests like they're normal, and when you're autistic you're not. And I basically was like, I'm abnormal, and it was horrible for a while. Like, I found it really hard to deal with. And the speech and language therapist who I saw when I was diagnosed, I saw him like a couple weeks later for like a follow-up session, and he said, oh, don't tell people that you're autistic, only tell a couple of people. And after a while, I just thought, no, I'm not doing that. You know, this is part of me, this is who I am. You know, why should I be friends with someone for a year, tell them I'm autistic, and suddenly they don't like the word and they, you know, go away? I want people to know I have, you know, that label on me and still like me for who I am and not change their opinion because I suddenly have a label on me. That's not what I want. And, you know, I've learned that autism is part of me. It makes me who I am, and it gives me some special traits that, like, other people don't have, and they are to be valued. And, you know, sure, it comes with difficulties, but it doesn't mean I can't overcome them, and that's really important to me. Like, it's okay to be autistic, and I don't think that's something I've really come to terms with until going to university and joining things like the Disabled Students Network. I'm now the Disabled Students Officer at the Student Union where I'm at uni, and yeah, all of these things kind of make me proud to be who I am. And I want people to know who, you know, if there's any girls like me, 15, and they've just been diagnosed, it will be okay. Like, sure, it's taken 3 years to get me to this point, but I'm happy now, you know, and it is okay to be autistic. You are not abnormal at all, you know, you're perfect just the way you are. So yeah, be proud, be proud. I am out and proud to be autistic, and so should you. What I would like to talk about now is my autism and me, and some of the ways it impacts my life. And then what I want to talk about is some of the ways that I kind of deal with these things that are kind of not as positive. That's a really weird wording, but some of the things that kind of impact me more in life and make life a bit harder, and how you can deal with them. Yeah, apologies, my dog is in the background. He's sleeping. When my parents watch this, they're going to be like, why is the dog in the bed? So help me, please. So the kind of first kind of area where it affects me is sensory problems. Okay, I'm going to not use the word problems, just sensory things. Firstly, alcohol. I am insanely sensitive to alcohol. I think some of it is because of the medication that I'm on. So I'm on antidepressants and ADHD meds, and both mixed with alcohol. That's kind of problem one. But I think also for some of it is an autistic thing. So I have an autistic friend, and we were both saying we hate the feeling of being drunk, and yeah, we're just more sensory to it because I think our bodies are naturally more sensitive. So that the kind of feeling of being drunk is worse for us, and we just dislike it more than other people. Whether that makes us drunker, I don't know. I think it kind of does. Like, I'd say it's just because of how we interpret and perceive and feel things, it makes it worse, but I'm not entirely sure about how scientifically accurate this is. It's just something that we both have and feel. The second thing is I'm quite sensitive to noise. I don't really like loud noises. So like festivals, music, or when loads of people are talking, I really don't like that. I also hate the sound of people eating. That is something that really, really winds me up, is eating. It's a really annoying thing to be sensitive to. I'm also sensitive to how things feel. So I don't really like wearing jeans that much because of the button, and they're quite rough. I'm also like sheets and stuff I can find quite itchy. Certain socks, tights, I just don't like them. Another thing is shoes. When I was younger, I used to have a major problem with shoe shopping. I'd, you know, put on shoes that the shoe keeper said they fit, and my mum was like, they fit, and I'm like, no, they're uncomfortable, and just no one would believe me that I was finding these uncomfortable because they looked unfitable. And I think it was just me being super sensitive to things and people just didn't really realise that. The second kind of area is social. I find it quite hard keeping and maintaining friends and kind of making them. There are friends that I've kept for life and for a really long time, but a lot of friends I have for like 2 or 3 years, and then we kind of fall out for whatever reason. And normally, you know, I have messed up as well as they have, but when I'm in groups I find, say there's 5 of us, or like, and it's 2 of us in a group that have fallen out, the other 3 people aren't autistic and so won't really understand my actions and my intentions, and then no one really understands me, so it kind of makes me feel like it's all my fault, and I end up apologising for things that aren't my fault. Like, of course I make mistakes, but sometimes it feels like people are kind of ganging up on me because they don't really understand how I'm thinking and feeling and the kind of way that I think. So yeah, that causes problems. And in general, social situations I just find hard. I don't know why, but I do. And then some kind of other things, I don't really think they have a category, so they're in my category of other. I really like my routines. It really depends on the kind of what level routine that I have. It can be anything from at uni. It's kind of like, what I used to do on a Monday was I'd always wake up about 8, between 8 and 9, have breakfast, do 2 hours of work until 11, then I'd have a bit of chill time, I'd get the bus at 11:30, do my lecture, I'd then come back to my flat, have some lunch, do an hour of work, go back for my lecture, and then I'd have the kind of my second lecture for the day, and then I'd have the evening off and eat about 6:30. That was kind of my Monday evenings. So like things like that, I just follow the kind of same pattern to the day. I think quite literally, apparently, that's what my mum says. I think I do. I misinterpret things a lot. That's quite common for me to do. I think I'm also quite inflexible in like my day. Like, I like sticking to my routine and what I wanted and what I planned, and if that doesn't happen, I don't really like it. It also causes me quite a lot of anxiety. Yeah, I get really anxious about things, so that's quite like a big thing for me, is my anxiety. And I often find jokes quite hard to understand. I think that's part of the literal thinking as well. Normally it's okay, like my friend Llewellyn is quite good at explaining what the jokes mean when I don't understand them. So despite all the positives of autism, there are things that I've just mentioned that I do struggle with, and over time I've learned some techniques to deal with them that I'd like to share with you. These techniques kind of just help me cope a bit more, and they just work for me, and I'm no expert, so please don't take my advice too seriously, but if you are struggling with one of these things, hopefully something that I do to cope with them you could take some inspiration from and try as well. It would be really nice if in the comments, or if people messaged me individually telling me some of their techniques and stories, because I would like to do another video like this to compile them together so it's not just based on me. I also want to add that I am wearing different clothes because I refilmed this bit because I didn't like the way I worded some of the techniques and found that I was being a bit patronising, so I hope I've eradicated that, but if I haven't, or I do come across as patronising, I'm really sorry. I just don't know the best way to word it all. Technique number 1, routines. So I find that routines make me really happy. I always notice that at school, you know, you have your timetable and it's so, you know, to the hour what you're doing, what time you wake up every day, what time you go to bed. And then you'd get to the holidays and you'd lose all structure and I would just crumble. And I still haven't finally like figured out a way to solve the problem, because at school and at university you are told you must be in this place at this time, and no matter what routine you make yourself at home, there is no one telling you at this time you must do that, and it's also you suddenly have to do it. But I do try and cope, and kind of my ways to try and cope with that is to build a light routine at home. So kind of trying to get up at the same time every day, going to bed at the same time each day. So like a typical thing that I might do is, right, so I'm going to wake up at 8:30, at 9 o'clock, between 9 and 12 I'm going to revise, between 12 and 1 is TV time and lunch time, 1 and 4 is revision, and then from 4 o'clock I'm free. And I might say, what am I going to do in that time? So I might go for a run, I might choose a TV programme to watch, and within my revision times I will say what I'm going to do, and that will vary each day depending on my revision timetable. That's what I try and do, so a kind of loose routine. Technique number 2, misinterpretation. So the kind of misinterpretation I want to focus on here is questions in exams or essay questions that you might interpret differently. The kind of main one I remember the first time it ever really cropped up was in a GCSE mock where it asked about suffragettes being harmed, and what it was actually asking was the movement being harmed and affected, but I took it as the suffragettes coming to physical harm, and I got a really low mark in the question because I misinterpreted it wrongly. And ever since then I've always been really nervous that I'll do it again, and I have. So my kind of technique to deal with it at university is to use my student support plan. So my student support plan is a document which contains all sorts of information about me to do with social and academic things and problems I might have, and one of them on there is that I'm prone to misinterpreting things. So what I do when I have a big assessed essay to do is I might talk to my seminar tutor or email my lecturer and say, I have a student support plan which has, talks about how I misinterpret things. Can you help me with the question, tell me what it's asking and what it wants me to do? And they're really open to help me with that because I have that evidence of the student support plan which is sent out to departments so that they can, have a look to see if I'm actually, being truthful. And it really, really helps me to do that. Tip number 3, noise. So for me, noise is one of my big things that really, gets me quite anxious and quite upset. So the technique that I use to cope in noisy situations where I want to stay in that situation is my noise cancelling headphones. I know other people use ear defenders as well, but what I like about my noise cancelling headphones is that I can listen to music through them. But what is kind of my favourite thing about them is that they cancel the noise, so they kind of get rid of that unbearable level of noise. But what I can still do is I can still listen to people and follow conversations. Sometimes it's a bit tricky if I'm in a big group, I might not be able to hear what's going on the other side of the table, but if someone in close proximity to me is talking to me, I can still hear them, which I really like because I like to be able to stay in that conversation but also be able to cope. So my headphones are kind of the best thing for me and they really help. And tip number 4, touch. So I'm really sensitive to how things feel, and one of the things that I really struggle with is bedding. For years I would complain of itchy pillowcases, itchy sheets, itchy quilt covers, and so my mum managed to find this really good company that sold really soft bedding. So this is the soft covers at the moment. This is just a normal sheet, but they're really good, especially in winter, The only problem is in summer when it's really hot, I do prefer to go for a kind of normal duvet cover. I think they're a bit cooler. I do really like this material on my pillows as well, but at the moment my pillows are normal ones. I think when I got this, my sensitivity to touch kind of decreased actually, so as long as one bit of either the sheet or the cover is this material, that really helps me. And this was kind of a lifesaver, having that kind of non-itchy thing, because I do get days that I get really worked up by the kind of itchiness of the sheets. Another thing that I really don't like is trousers. So I find that jeans and stuff can be really tight against your tummy and you don't have as much movement. So, and I just love pyjama bottoms. So my mum for Christmas got me some bamboo trousers from a company called Thought, and they are really soft, they're really baggy and really comfortable, and I really like them. Unfortunately, I'm not wearing them at the moment, so I can't show you, but I will include a link to the company in the description of the video for you guys to check it out. I also have a number of socks from the company, which I think are really good as well. So that's kind of how I solve the problem, is wearing clothes that are really comfortable for me. And I kind of know by now what to stay clear of, but there are those companies that do extra special things like Thought and like the bedding company, and I will find out from her where she got them from, so I can include a link for that too. Technique number 5, social situations. This is something that I really do struggle with. I always have, and I still do, and I think I always will. But I have learnt some things to kind of get me through them. So my kind of main saver really is knitting and crochet. I find that this is really helpful because it gives me a task to do with my hands and something to focus on, but I can still engage with the conversation if I want to, and it also doesn't make me look rude, because sometimes when you're on your phone people kind of are like, oh, that's not okay, but by knitting and crocheting it's less rude. And I find it's also a kind of a conversation starter, like people will say like, oh Elana, what are you making? Oh Elana, that's really cool. And that finds a nice way for me to interact with other people. I will do some more videos on the benefits of knitting and crochet and also how to do it, because my mum attends lots of autistic women events, and a kind of a new thing they've begun to focus on is knitting and crochet and the benefits of it, so that's something I really like to focus on. The other thing I do in social situations is kind of limit my time. So when I used to go to parties during my A-levels, I would kind of tell myself how long do I want to spend at this party, and I would then get my parents to pick me up at that specific time, or I tell myself I have to stay for this long, and then when I'm ready I'll call my parents to pick me up. So I kind of limited the amount I would do, and I think it's also just knowing how much social interaction that you can cope with. Thank you very much for watching my video Autism and Me. Please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and comment what you like and what you didn't like, and I will see you next Monday at 5 PM for the next video. Bye bye!